here. This is the second workshop. This is the identifying the opportunity. You are, I think on Tuesday, you go over the identifying the problems. So today we have two faculty fellows who will walk you through the second part of your idea plan, which is the opportunity part. So pay attention on that. Before the faculty's fellows going to present today, which is Professor Brent Shell. He's actually professor from the School of College of Health Science. And joining him later on is Professor Neil Shortland from College of Fine Arts, Humanities, and Social Science. Right. Before we go into the workshop today, I just want to remind you about the dates. Right. This is the second workshop. Next week we have another two workshops. One on Monday. It's about business model. It's all about creating your solution. Your solution is not just a product. Okay? It's how you deliver it. Where your user will find your products. How do you let them know about your products? How do you make money or make impact from your products? That is the solution part, which is kind of go into the business model of your idea. The Thursday is the last workshop. It's all about how to pitch your idea. Have only 5 minutes to present your idea. Okay? Wrap everything in with 5 minutes. How to make it cohesive, short, but allow the judges to understand what your idea is. Okay? Now, things that you really have to remember is the idea plan will be due by March 2nd. This is online. You don't have to fill in on paper and give it to us. It's the same way you go into application. Okay? Go in there and fill it online form. All you have to do is just log in. Now, idea plan is already open. That form is already open. If you're ready, you can fill it in. But my suggestion is that make sure that you go to all 4 workshops. Right? It will really help you to actually craft that idea plan. Right? I think that's it. That's the all the reminder I kind of have to remind you, but let's bring the professor. Right.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
So I'm set. All right, how's everyone doing this evening? Yeah, managed to navigate here without it being too nasty and cold, right? So, the first thing we really want to do is just make sure we know what we're going to do today, and then make sure that we're ready to, discuss what we did last time. But before that, let's have a quick kind of public service announcement. So all this stuff in front of you, the lovely free food that you have, the plates and everything are not going to be recyclable, so just make sure you throw those in the trash. The water bottles can be recycled, but just empty them out first. So unless you empty them and they're cleaned out, please do that before you throw them into recycling. So just a quick heads up so we don't contaminate recycling. That way the stuff we recycle goes where it needs to go. Right?
Your cans are recyclable. Make sure you put the lids, leave the lids on the bottle. The lids by themselves are not recyclable. They have to be on the bottles or no lid at all.
That I did not know. I'm learning something new all the time. All right, so if you attended the previous workshops, then you should have a pretty good idea as to where we're going to start at. The last workshop was really enabling you to identify the problem and to gauge the scope of the problem, right? That's what you worked through last time. So hopefully at this point, you have an idea as to what the problem is you wish to solve, and you've done a little bit of work to figure out how big the problem is, who the problem affects, if it's a significant problem, if it's a major pain, or if it's a minor pain point for people, how many people it affects. Those kinds of things, you should have a reasonable idea as to who you're trying to reach. And if you don't, that's fine. It's just a great jumping off point to make sure that you have places to research. Because when you go to present this, if you're going to tell someone that they should give you money for your idea, they're going to ask you, how big is your market? Who's in your market? Who's affected by this? How affected are they by that, right? Those are things that you should know how to answer if they come up. And so if you work with the toolkit, that'll help you to really make sure you have those answers ready when those questions come up. So why don't we take a second and sit with your group and come up with a quick 1-minute pitch that tells us what the problem is that you're going to solve for us and tells us how many people or who is affected by your problem, and then lets us know just what your current thought on what your solution is to that problem. It doesn't have to be what you're definitely going to do. It's just giving us an idea as to where you're at right now. So take a second, enjoy some of the delicious free food, and let us know what the problem is. Sketch it out real quick for us, and make sure you can give us that information in a minute or less. Because this can't be your entire pitch, right? This has to be just one tiny section of your pitch. So get it down to 1 minute. So take a few minutes, and then we'll all come together and hear these pitches. That way we can start to refine them and get this part down to just a minute. That's fair. You can do that. It's really just more so that you have what you need to tell us about it, and it's not so much about having everything you possibly need to say right now. Are you done? Working through it? All right.
You don't want to use green for recycling.
So it's just that they actually found those in our subcard, so that type of knowledge.
Everyone's been working really hard. Does anyone want to tell us their problem and let us know what the pain point is?
Technically, I mean, as long as
That's
it's
very
their.
technical.
I like it.
Yeah, it sounds really rough, right? All right, so who would like to tell us about their ideas?
Every month.
It looks like.
Anybody? Nobody's feeling bold?
Stuart will.
Stuart will, all right. Come on
I'm a
up.
business student.
Oh, I go home again.
Yeah.
Where's the
Here you go, let us know.
Hi, I'm Stuart, and our idea was kind of, well, my partners aren't here today, but yeah, our idea was we wanted to redesign the current sprinkler system because we currently don't think that we'd have to spray down the whole building just to get rid of one fire, right? So we were thinking if we could have a way to detect where a fire was in a specific area, we could like just spray water on that one area to eliminate the fire instead of having all the sprinkler systems to go off simultaneously. And yeah, because we find out like a waste of water and a waste of energy.
All right, I like that idea. Awesome.
Good job, Stuart.
I love that idea, especially because I lived in an apartment where the sprinkler system broke and that water has sulfur in it to help douse the flames out faster, and my apartment was inhabitable because it smelled like sulfur. So I think that's a wonderful idea. All right, who's next? Who would like to tell us about their problem, give us a little insight into what they're thinking about what the problem is, and then what they may do to solve that problem.
Gonna give it a try?
You guys have a lot of stuff for us.
Okay, you voice loud voice.
I'm Alex. Nice to meet everybody. So basically, our project addresses like the transportation issues against like mothers with addiction and their children. So they're trying to get to their appointment and they don't either have enough money or they're too afraid that someone's going to judge them for going to their appointment. So if you apply our project is like basically to establish like an app that will basically get them to and from their appointment, and it'll be nonprofit. So yeah.
So it's got a specific problem, it's got a specific measurable population, you have something that you can do to ease that pain point. You've got all three in there succinctly. It took about a minute. All right, who's next? Perfect. Would you like a microphone or would you like to yell?
I'll just yell.
All right.
All right, I'm Hannah. I'm a senior public health major, and the problem that I'm identifying is increasing pollution in Lowell, especially around campus, like near the bus stops specifically. And the way we can address this is with a living wall. So putting a vertical garden on the walls, since there's very limited green space in walls.
There's a specific target population there, and then they're going to be measurable, right? They're also convenient because it's on campus, so they'd be really easy to survey as well. right? And then there's a definite solution that you have there that you can ask people if that's the solution that they'd like, and that way you can do something about it and make sure you're doing the something that your population would be most likely to be engaged with. Who else? All right, perfect. Would you like a microphone or would you like to yell?
Nah, free talk. I'm required.
All right.
Just shout it out.
No worries. That's what I'm here for. I hold stuff.
So over here, my name is David, by the way. So over here, we realize that people honestly want to recycle. Everybody loves the environment, but we want to. Sometimes people don't know what to recycle, and also need the cash value of whatever needs to be recycled. So we try to come up with an app solution that can tell you what you can recycle and also the cash value of whatever item that you have just by scanning it in the bottle or whatever. You can just scan it. We'll tell you, oh, this is recyclable. You can get this next amount of money out of it. So something pretty simple.
All right. There's a definite problem there of knowing what can be recycled and what of the recyclables has value. There's definitely people who would be interested in that. You may have to do a little bit more research to find the specific group that would be most likely to take advantage of that first, and then you have a definite way to solve that problem. So, everyone else will have time later for you to tell us your ideas, because we're going to talk today about assessing opportunities. So far you've found what a problem is, and you know a bit about the problem because you've had a chance to research it. But we need to make sure that the problem that you've identified and the idea that you have for it is going to be actionable. That it's not just an idea, but rather it's an opportunity. Because you could have a lot of ideas of things that you would like to change, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's something that you can change that's going to be a business or something that you can change that would be for social entrepreneurship. Maybe I have a pain point that I eat a bunch of food and I was like, well, that was good, but what if it tasted like pickles, right? Pizza's pizza, but what if pizza tasted like pickles? That's an idea. I could do something about it, but is that an opportunity? Could I get someone to give me money for it? Could I get someone to buy something that tastes like pickles? I don't know. That would require some market research, right? I need to go out and ask people and be like, what could I make taste like pickles that you could buy? And so someone has probably done this and they've come up with an idea. They can sell you pickle-flavored toothpaste. So just to show of hands real quick, who is interested in pickle-flavored toothpaste? Anybody? Nobody's on board for the pickle-flavored toothpaste. This is the third year I've mentioned this, and I have yet to be able to buy it on Amazon. There is a company that makes it. They will not sell it to me yet. So I'm venturing to guess that the market segment for people who want pickle-flavored toothpaste is pretty low. Or I'm really far off and it's so high that they've sold out for the next decade, right? The important thing here is that I could have this idea, but I don't know if it's an actual opportunity. I need information to know if my idea is a viable opportunity for me to do something with, right? Maybe I really like pickles, but I'm kind of alone in that. So then how do we figure out, is this something that has opportunity? Is this a viable idea? That's going to be identification of something called the opportunity gap, and the opportunity gap is something that you need to measure. It requires research, it requires information, right? Everyone presented a problem so far, and they knew something about who they wanted to present this to. But no one knows quite yet how big that opportunity is, and that's something that you've got to know before you get to the time of pitching, because people are going to want to know, how many people does this affect? How likely are they to be concerned with what you're concerned with? So you've got to figure out what your opportunity is and then analyze the space of that opportunity. Maybe you're not alone in that market segment. Maybe there's other people already competing in the pickle toothpaste market space and you just didn't know about them yet, right? Maybe they're making tons of money and you may not be able to approach them because they've got the market cornered, right? it could be that the pain there is being solved in a way already, but you've got a better way to solve it, right? Maybe your pickle toothpaste also reduces sensitivity. So not only do you have the great pickle flavor, you also have reduced sensitivity. So not only do you smell like a pickle, you also don't hurt your teeth as much anymore when you eat cold pickles, right? So a lot of people identify things that they think have a lot of opportunity, but they really need to measure it. So let's see an example. What is this? This is a US patent. You can actually go look up this patent and read the details of what they patented. But just basically, what is this? It's an apparatus for use as a toy by an animal, for example, a dog, to either fetch, carry, or chew. They patented what? A stick, right? So, who is your competition in the selling people a stick market? You are competing against nature, right? You're competing against every tree I run into. So, your opportunity may sound great. I could come to your meeting and you have a lot of money and I say, I have a market segment of 1 billion dog owners. All the dogs play fetch. Literally, I can sell 1 billion of these because they all need something to play fetch with. Is your opportunity actually that big? No, because everyone can just go grab one of these from outside, right? You're literally competing against nature at this point. But someone has a patent on this because they thought, maybe, right? So the reason why I tell you this is not so that you go out and patent everything you've ever seen, right? I don't want someone to leave here and be like, oh my goodness gracious, I'm gonna patent clouds. And then every time someone's in the shade, I'm gonna be like, you owe me. Right? No. The point is that you need to make sure that you've identified the opportunity, right? That's why we need to have this research, is so that we know what our opportunity is. Because you may say, this is great and it's going to solve things, and it may do that, but you need to make sure that the opportunity is there, that there's not someone else that you can't compete against, or there's not something already available that's free, that's provided by nature. So you need to make sure that there's a market for your product, or that your social entrepreneurship opportunity best fulfills the need that is necessary. So how are we going to do this? It's going to be research and numbers, right? That's the best way to do it. You need to make sure you know who is affected by your problem, how many they are, how interested they are in solving it, and how much effort they're willing to put in to solve that problem. You identify that opportunity. So here's an example here that we can consider. These are 2 local recipients who got prosthetic arms from Enable, right? So Enable made these prosthetic limbs and they gave them to these recipients here, right? And they look really enthusiastic about it. And that's fantastic. But they need to make sure that there's a market there. So do you think that even though that these are definitely the users of the product, do you think they're the people who paid for the product? Yeah, that seems less likely. So that means that they had to identify both who may potentially pay for a product like this, or who would provide them funding to give these types of products away for free. Both of those are part of the opportunity. If your desire is to do things for social entrepreneurship, you may need to identify grant funding. Your grant funding won't be your users. Your grant funding won't even be your customers. But you still need to know about them to know about your opportunity, right? In this case, maybe their parents were buying these, right? You would need to know that your user and your customer were different. That's a difference in the opportunity that's available, right? Because you need to identify who is going to use it, how big is the opportunity there, but also who is going to pay for it, and how big is the opportunity there. All of that is the opportunity together, right? So you just presented this app that will help you to identify recycled materials and identify, what's going to happen with it. Is it valuable? Can it be recycled? And so you'd have to know, if you're looking to make revenue off of this, you need to say who actually provides the revenue. If it's ads, you need to make sure that you have ads that make relevant sense. So your opportunity has to take into account. Is there a lot of opportunity there for you to have the revenue you think will be important for that product? All right, does everyone have a pretty clear idea on that? Good. So we need data for this, right? At the end of the day, if we're going to be able to figure out our opportunity, what we really need is a bunch of data. We need to know how big the opportunity is. 1 billion people have dogs, 1 billion people need to play fetch. That sounds really good, but I needed to know how big the opportunity was in terms of people willing to buy fetch-based toys for their pets, right? How big is it now? How big can it become? If I made this really cool game to play with people's pets, would more people get pets then, right? That's part of the opportunity there. That's part of how much of that pain you can alleviate and how effective it's going to be. You also need to determine your first customers. They are your entry point into this, right? The first people you sell it to may not be the largest part of the market, but they are part of the market that's going to get you started in that. So you need to know who your customer base could be, but also who your first few customers are. Who's the first person who's going to help buy this product and spread word about how useful it is? So that's an important piece there too, because you have to get through the first part before you can expand and get to potentially your larger customer base. That's all part of the opportunity there. If you need to immediately get into a bigger customer pool, you need to immediately have more funding. So this is just examples of things that people have looked at before. So if you're going to do something that involves an app, you need to know about who has phones. If the people you want to use the app are not people who have phones with apps, that might make that difficult, right? So you need to make sure that those two populations have a decent amount of overlap there, and they need to make sure that you can present that really easily, right? So when you come to a presentation, that data is easy to digest and easy for you to explain. So try it out on people. Show it to people, see how quickly they can get the main point of the data that you want, right? You should be able to show it to them and they can digest it in less than a minute, because that's about how long you're going to have in your presentation. So here's an example. This is voted, it was a difference maker winner from last year, and they wanted to make sure that everyone had sufficient information before they would go and vote. And so they wanted to have an app that would allow people to figure out what candidate they wanted to vote for, to make sure that people would have information about it. They've pivoted some, they're doing more of a like find your candidate for a Tinder style kind of matchup thing. But either way, they needed to know about their potential opportunity. Their first customers were in Massachusetts, so they were identifying how many people in Massachusetts would vote and how many of those people would have phones that would be compatible with their app. Their broader base was going to be the whole country once they could expand, but they needed to know how many people in the broader base would need that. So they had to identify the opportunity for their first market, Massachusetts, and their broader market, the whole US. This is Etrolog. It was another difference maker winner from last year. I'm sorry, the year before. And Etrolog was identifying that they wanted to have a lock that would be able to open without you having to physically engage with the lock. You walk up to the door, it senses your presence, and then it allows you to enter. And so their first idea was going to be that they were just going to compete with the smart lock industry, which looked a lot more appealing, but they found that their solution actually was probably going to be more feasible and better suited to the assistive technology market. We're all happy to have a little bit more work in our smart locks, but they found that if they worked with assistive technology, so things like nursing homes or maybe people who are having issues with being able to open their lock, if you approach the door and it unlocks for you, that relieved a lot of pain for them. There was a lot of opportunity, even though the total number of people who might be using it would be small. So once you figured that out, you need to see who else is in the space. So who else are you competing against? Who else might be there already trying to solve that problem, already trying to ease that pain? So maybe you're thinking, there's millions upon millions of people who have iPhones, and a lot of them get broken. So I'll make an iPhone case, because look at how big this market is. It's gigantic. Why might that be a riskier idea than you think? Right, if I search iPhone cover on Amazon, I get 50,000 results before Amazon says, yeah, I'm not going to look anymore, right? That's just it saying I'm done. So there's a lot of people in that space. So you have to make sure that whatever you present to people is going to be different or an improvement or somehow is going to stand out. Because otherwise, you're one of 50,000 results, and things start looking a little less promising than saying a lot of people have iPhones and I think this is going to work out. So having this opportunity identified is critical, right? It is essential to making sure that your idea will get off the ground and then be sustainable. So it's a really crucial thing to do now because it'll save you time in the future and it'll help you to be able to refine your idea as well. If you go out and talk to the people you think will want your product and they're like, well, I don't really want that, but I would like this, you may be able to make sure your product fits the niche that they need, right? So here's one more example. It's another difference maker idea winner. It's used cart. And what they noticed is that, if you already had a long day, let's say you were going to leave this and then you needed to stop by the store to pick something up and the store was packed, right? Your first thought would be, I don't really want to be here and wait in this line. And so they wanted to have a cart that you could just use to scan your items, and then when you were done, you just take your stuff and go. You paid at the cart, everything was done by the cart, you didn't have to wait in line. It was easy. Stop in, grab the stuff, hop out. And so they needed to identify if this was viable, if stores would accept it, if customers would use it, if it would be actually easier than waiting in line. And so they had to identify competitors, they had to have people test things, they had to make sure the idea that the opportunity was there. They had to make sure that there was plenty of space in the market for them. They would ease the pain that they had enough opportunity there. So, let's use that information, right? We just talked about problems and some of you got to present them and some of you didn't. So take some time and figure out what your opportunity is. You know what the problem is, but try and figure out what you need or make estimates about what you think your opportunity is. Who are you competing against? Who is in this market? Who may not be in this market? Give us an idea of your potential competition. Give us an idea as to how big your opportunity is, right? Take a few minutes with your team and work on that, and then I will come around and we'll get some more presentations, right?
Yes, scan it.
Oh, yeah. So if you literally click on it,
Because with Google, you actually have to go search.
Because it will give you so much.
Right, yeah, you'll have to swipe through all of the links.
You must also have a tour, but it isn't in some way. Excuse space. Does it help?
Right, so I mean, I didn't even know about the tour, so that's like.
Right. So the thing is, you list all the things, the possible things that people actually can do to satisfy them. But what's the weak point of each of this? And when they would point it out, we should see that. If I want to do any of these ways to make
I have heard some great research going on, and it sounds like there are some great ideas.
You're like, oh, I just did that one.
So, who would like to tell us about your opportunity or tell us the avenues you're going to explore to learn more about your opportunity? I see lots of good stuff written down. Who wants to go first? Yeah. Fantastic. So, you want a microphone or would you like to?
No, I talk.
All right, I can hold that for you. That is what I'm here for.
So my project, I named it Lola 360. The population I'm kind of going for is incoming freshmen, international students, or just transfers. I still have to figure out and talk to some of those people to see if they would actually be interested. But my entire project is focusing on creating a 360 tour of Lowell and including the history and the community and how everything's intertwined with the university. UMass Lowell does have an online tour online that is 360, but a lot of it just focuses on what each of the buildings at UMass Lowell are and how they're intertwined within that. And the Lowell Mills and the park rangers, they do have tours, but nothing virtual, and you have to physically go out there and search out and do something like that. So mine would be kind of like the mix between the both of them, of figuring out something where you could physically sit there and do it yourself while also learning and having things like that.
All right.
Thank you.
And so we just discussed this a minute ago. You have different opportunities there. There's an opportunity where you need to analyze people who may be wanting to use this, but there's also an opportunity of businesses who may want to use you as a way to show off what they have. So you need to figure out which opportunity is the one for you best to pursue first. They both have different pain points, and you may be able to do something for both of them, but you have to find which opportunity is the one that you want to pursue. All right. Yeah, all right. World Jersey. I'm happy to hold that. Would you like to yell or would you like a microphone?
I'll just yell.
Alright.
Yep, so like he said, we are World Jersey. We are making custom-made baseball jerseys based on country's flag colors. Now, the opportunity that we have here is that there are a lot of young male adult immigrants in the U.S. that take pride and honor in their own country, but also feels a lack of cultural awareness at wherever they are staying at. So this will resolve that and give them a way to rep the country that I want to rep.
All right. Right, and so you've got a nice broad overview of what the opportunity may be, but it's just time to do some research, right? How many are there? How many are interested in it? How many are willing to spend money on it? Right, those are the kinds of things that you need to be able to kind of drill down and get a little bit clearer idea on. Fortunately, you can do a lot of just going out and talking to people. Are they interested in it? Does this seem like a good idea? You can do some mock-ups, ask people, get a real clear idea as to how big that opportunity is, how big that market is, where they would go to look for that stuff, right? Where would someone even think to look for that? Would that be something they'd go to the internet to, or would they go for a store to? That way you know where your opportunity is at, right? All right, who else would like to get out? Anybody? Yeah, all right. Oh, that sounds good. Go for it.
Hello. My name is Yihar and I'm on Team 8. And our problem is that a lot of people are wearing face masks, not the one that you want to wear when you want a good skin. Face masks to cover your mouth to protect you from bacteria in the air. And what the problem with those face masks is that they're disposable. So after using them for a while, you have to throw them away. And we would like to create an eco-friendly one made out of PLA biodegradable plastic, which can be biodegradable, so after you're done with it, it will compost into the ground. And we think it would be a good opportunity because a lot of people are wearing a lot of these face masks anyways, especially recently with the new virus outbreak in China. So we have a huge market in that. And we're thinking about selling it to schools and labs and hospitals and stuff to use it. And yeah, that's it.
All right. So let's explore within that opportunity, right? How many are in the market looking for something like this? How many people are willing to use that, right? How much would that cost relative to the standard purchased face mask? A lot of things for you to look at through that opportunity to see what's available there. So it's a good overview, but it's a good opportunity for you also to do a lot of research in that area. All right, so everyone identified more broad things, and that's exactly what we expect for the opportunity right now, is that you're getting an idea as to the market, but you don't have hard numbers yet because, you know, there's not really a chance to do all that research right now. So then where do you go from here? You take those broader things that you've identified and you start getting numbers for those things. How many people? What is the actual number? How many does it affect? How many are there? What are the subpopulations within it? How many people are interested in it? That allows you to drill down into that opportunity and get very specific as to what it is that's available to you and what implementation is the best for you to pursue, right? And so it allows you to figure out who your users are, who your customers are, because they may not be the same person, right? If you're going to be selling face masks, your users are the people who wear the mask, but your customers are likely the people who need to do the purchasing in those departments, at those schools, at those colleges, right? Or it may be who does bulk buying and sells them at a store. And so you really need to make sure you know who those people are and what their interests are, because they will actually buy the product. Right? With the jerseys, you'd have to know specifically who's willing to buy the jersey or what distributors are willing to buy them in bulk, right? So that would be a way for you to really get into that market segment, to really understand your specific opportunity and its size. And you can actually get that started here. You can interview people, you can stop by the library and use the databases to get an idea as to how many people are within that market and what's available to you. So by doing that, that's going to help you to be able to then take the problem that you identified. What is the pain? What is the point at which you can do something about it? And figure out how big the opportunity is for that pain point, right? I had this issue where things don't taste like pickles, and I found out that I would like to make things taste like pickles, but no one else does. So while I thought it was a great idea, my opportunity was incredibly narrow. Right? And the way I addressed the problem was not something that anyone else wanted. So you want to make sure that you don't end up on a pathway like that, right? That you're on a pathway to where you have a solution to the problem and it addresses the opportunity for the population that you want in a way that they find useful. That it's an effective solution to their pain point, to what you already identified. And if it's something that's already out there, make sure that your thing stands out. There are already face masks, but you have a differentiator. Yours is recyclable. There are already jerseys, but but I can't buy a jersey for a specific country right now. I've differentiated in that market segment. There's something unique. Make sure that it's going to be different enough that people are interested, and make sure it's different in a way that makes them interested. Figure out what that opportunity is, right? So everyone took a little bit and kind of started to address that already. What we're going to do next is then take that opportunity and figure out what your value is that you're offering to the potential customers. How are you going to give them something that is of value to them, and what are those particular values? And we are going to have Dr. Neil Shortland tell us about that. Let's give him a big round of applause.
No, not really.
All right.
Kind of walk with those on the other side of the room. They all got cold. And give me a minute. Smooth start. Sorry, the building them over there. Thanks, Brent. How you doing? Okay. How is everybody doing? I don't think clap. Thank you very much. That meant a lot. The confidence is high. All right, everybody. Okay. My name is Neil Shortland. I'm a psychologist on the South Campus. I'm a cognitive psychologist. I study decision making in soldiers, police, murderers, terrorists, a bit of everyone really. Which probably makes you wonder why I'm here. What I'm going to talk to you today is about why and how people make decisions, and how that is going to help you as a business, as an entrepreneur, but really to think about this idea of value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically help you identify who the decision maker is, help you work out how you calculate value, and then I'm going to teach you a couple little tricks to basically maximize the way you think about the value that you're offering people, and how you can communicate it in ways that taps into language and methods that are going to encourage people to use it. So I'm going to start really, really basic. Has anybody got a pen that works on this board? You do. I saw it earlier. Can I borrow that pen? That's fantastic. Thank you. All right, okay. So let me ask you an honest-to-God question. How much is an iPhone case? $10. Right, thank you. It's very good. Okay. How much does it cost when you drop an iPhone and smash the screen and have to replace it on insurance?
No insurance?
We'll go with no insurance and insurance. So how much does it cost no insurance?
Like 300.
300. All right. How much does it cost with insurance? 100 maybe. All right. Okay. So in both models, what is the net benefit of having a case? The mathematics people, I'm assuming we're mathematics. Yeah. 90 and 290. Thank you, sir. Okay, right, 90, 290. Okay, so why do I refuse to use the case? Despite the fact I have had to pay this 3 times this year. There's a business, there's a value proposition. Why do I refuse to put a case on my phone and do the irrational behavior every time? Yes?
Maybe there's a possibility that you won't need to spend any money at all.
Maybe, yes. Oh, mate, I love that, right? Possibility, right? I'll come back to all of these. Yes, absolutely love it. What else? Yes, sir?
iPhone cases, there's no guarantee that you will drop it again.
True, yeah. No guarantee of success. Yes, sir.
Don't like the design.
Don't like the design. Thank you. Now you're a man after my own heart. Yes?
Your phone looks nicer without a case.
That looks nicer. Nicer without a case. Yes. Any more?
Feels nicer too.
It does feel so much nicer. It doesn't feel nicer when you smash the back. Or the fact that my screen currently is doing a disco thing that gives me epilepsy. But other than that, it's absolutely fine. But what is going on here, right? Because what is going on? Am I doing a rational behavior? No, I'm not. Now, I'm not doing an irrational behavior. I think I'm being rational. You objectively think I'm being irrational. So I'm not irrational, I'm rational. You just don't understand why I'm rational. Now, this is what we come up against time and time again. It is the irrationality and the rationality of people making decisions. Now, this is the real challenge, right? Who here is a physicist? Anybody? Yes, thank you very much. Newton's first law. What is Newton's first law? Yep. Yeah. Newton's first law.
So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Okay, that's not the one I wanted.
So if something is moving, keep on moving until the force is applied, and if something is at rest, we'll keep it rest until the force is applied.
Okay, that might have been the one that I possibly misquoted earlier then, in a book, so don't worry about it. Right, but the idea is that things don't move, right, until forces are applied to them. That makes sense to everybody?
Yeah.
And that's roughly Newtonian? Sounds better if I said it's Newtonian. Okay, now, this is a person. And you want them to move towards your product, correct? Your product, your company, your campaign, all of this stuff. So how do you make them move? Because the force, in some cases, they have an internal force, and that internal force is moving them towards something. But how do you make them move? How do you externally move them towards you? Bring them towards your product and your goal. If you do nothing, what happens? They don't go anywhere. You do nothing, they're not going anywhere. So you have to be the one, you are the external force that moves them. Your hand went up, buddy, what do you think?
You appeal to those internal forces.
Yeah.
With like advertisements.
Appeal, sure. Yeah. Appeal to the internal forces with advertisements, absolutely. Yeah. Anything else? Yes.
Show them something they want or need.
Sure, yeah, show them what they want or need, show them what they want or need, right? You're absolutely right. You need to make them decide to use your product, to support your initiative. So you are the external force, or you apply the external force to them. If you don't apply any force, they're not going to move. If you apply a force that doesn't mean anything to them, they're not going to move. So you need to understand them and you need to move them towards you. Now, let's go with some very, very basic, so over here, decision-making psychology. Very simple. Okay. Spin this one around. I really hope no one needs these equations. Okay. What is a basic decision-making equation? Anybody know the fundamental equation of all decision-making? Rational choice theory. Anyone know the equation? I'll start it for you. Action/decision equals. What are the fundamental things at play when people make decisions? Yes.
Previous experiences?
Not in this instance, that's how they learn to evaluate these factors. But it is one. I'm not going to say it's not. In this instance, it's not quite right. But in real, it is, yes. Yes, sir? Need, yes, that factors into it. It is there. We need to go up a few levels, but yes.
Reward times chance of reward?
What?
Reward times chance of reward? I just think the term there.
Reward times transfer reward.
Chance of a reward.
Reward times chance of reward? Yes. I'm going to put that in there. It's going to come in a moment. So I'll put it there for safety. Yes, sir. Your hand was up. You can say the same
What
thing.
they have versus what they don't have.
Yes and no. You're all very, very close. But basically, it is benefit greater than cost. That makes sense to everybody? Now, if that is the look, this is 1964 Becker routine activity theory. But the idea is basically if you study criminals, why will they do crime? They'll do crime if the benefit outweighs the cost. It's a fundamental human behavior, right? It's the idea of the rational actor. We rationally look at things, we find things that are of benefit to us. If the benefit is greater than the cost, we do it. We'll unpack this in a moment. Now, what is value in this equation? Is that a stretch or an arm? Okay, we're going to answer the question anyway. No, I'm joking. But what do you think, where is value in this equation? The value's in there, what do you think? In relation to cost, right? So value is the differential between these two, right? So the higher the benefit goes, the smaller cost, the bigger the value, the closer they get, the smaller the value. So, We need to understand these, and then we need to make this go up and this go down. So, here's what I want you to do, very simply. I need you to think about something. Who is making the decision to use your product? And on top of that, is the person making the decision to use your product the person who is paying? Does that make sense? Okay, I need you to just answer that question for me. So in your teams, or what, just take 60 seconds, a minute, write down who the decision maker is. Because we need that for the next step. Is that okay? If you need Okay, so guys, you're World Jersey, right?
Yes.
So as an example for you, who's your decision maker?
Consumer's customer.
Consumer customer, perfect. Okay, one and done. Same over there, right? Yours is exactly the same, consumer customer. Does anybody have a relationship where the consumer is not or is only one part of the decision makers? So let me give you an example. So 3 years ago there was a difference maker company called Operation 250. They are an in-school educational program. They have two decision makers. The first is they need schools to decide to use their product, right? They need schools to welcome them in, to have the intervention, to let them have access to their children. The second decision maker is the state or funders who have to decide to give them money. So does anybody have a relationship where you have that separation of the two? Yes, what have you got, buddy?
I think my organization would be like nonprofit, so would it be like the funding basically helping for the person making the decision to use the app? That makes sense?
Yeah, so hang on a minute, so walk me through. So you're doing, it's a non-profit company. Where are you getting your money from?
We would raise it from like advertisement through like putting it like on, like when you get a ride from Uber, it will advertise would you like to donate like this, that, to this funding.
Okay, now, that's absolutely right, because you obviously have the users, and then you have the advertisers. Now there, what you've got is almost a self-entwined decision-making process, because you need people to use your product, and their use of the product becomes the benefit for the next level of someone to use your product. But you're absolutely right, you have two separate entities. And the reason is that when you do what we're doing at the moment, which is benefits and costs, you will have to have two models. Because the benefit and cost for the consumer is a different series of considerations of the benefit and costs for the funders. Does that make sense? Is anyone else in that same boat? Two different users, or have most people got a direct-to-consumer relationship where you just need to convince them to use your product in exchange for money? What company are you doing?
So if I have a medical device or drugs that for patients, who's we involved in this? Probably the one who pays for that, probably the insurance company.
Well, yeah. So if you were doing medical or drugs or anything that required a investment, that's who your decision maker is. Now, in those cases, you still have to communicate two different narratives, because you have to encourage two different decisions, right? The first decision is they need to invest in you, and then the second set of decisions is you need people to use the product. Now, those two things are linked, but the variables on either side of those are different, because for the lower level, right, the users, you're communicating the benefit in terms of healthcare, in terms of positive life. At the top level, they don't really care about that. You're communicating money and profit margins and minimal workload. So what you just need, all I want you to be able to do is to understand who you are going to need to make a decision to support you, and map out the variables that are going to affect those two different decisions. And the reason I say that is the biggest mistake I see in early companies is assuming that the decision making of their user is the same as the decision making of a funder. And without being horrible, funders don't care. Op 250 communicate to classrooms as your kids are unsafe online, and it would be really, really helpful if you let us in and help them. Funders don't respond to that message. Funders respond to keeping kids safe online saves you a bunch of money, because when they're unsafe online, they do really, really nasty things, and that costs you a ton of cash. So it's about identifying who the decision maker is. Now, Let's just go through some very, very simple potential. We can go with, let's go with you guys, right? Well, Jersey, do you mind if I use you as an example? What are the benefits? To your decision maker, your customer, your clientele, what are the benefits?
You get to rep a fly-looking jersey while making an impact in whatever country that you decide to buy.
Okay, right, okay, impact for your country.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got repping fly jersey, positive impact and association with your country. Any more benefits?
You're spreading
Culture awareness.
Cultural awareness, thank you, sir. Right there
wearing
you
the
go.
jersey, you're spreading culture awareness.
Okay, cultural awareness. That's it. That's really lovely. Okay, I'm going to draw a line under that and call this one. What are the costs?
Cost, hypothetically like $40, $40, $50.
Okay, so there's a cash cost.
Yeah.
Any others?
For the consumer, right? Not for the consumer.
Just for the consumer, the person who is in the jersey store and they're looking at the Dodgers with their new hire, whose name I've already forgotten.
Or we could potentially do like a bundle where like if you decide to make hats, like oh you can get this, if you buy a New Jersey, you can get like a hat.
Okay, so what you're trying to do is basically minimize the cost to product ratio. But what are the other costs that they incur by buying your jersey?
Nothing else.
Nothing else?
Benefit.
What about not buying a Lakers jersey? Or not buying a Dodgers jersey?
Right.
Is that not a cost? Is that not a cost?
If you don't like sports, if you don't watch basketball, that's not a cost.
Okay, so there's no other costs other than the cost that incurs them and the benefit
If you do
of
watch the NBA, then those then you would want to buy those jerseys preferably. But
Okay.
there's a huge market for people who don't watch the NBA, like people outside the US, people who don't watch NFL,
Right.
people outside, you know.
Okay.
So,
Also, it's the fact that there's lots of like multiracial people, so
Yeah.
just more than one nationality. So that's another opportunity there.
Okay.
Because there's people not just from one country but other countries.
Okay. Question, how do I buy your jersey?
Online.
Online, okay. I'm just writing
so
time.
no travel costs there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no travel, easy. Okay, all right. Who has a more? There's a good one. Who has a more complicated? Huh?
Shipping if they're getting it online.
There you go, shipping costs. I'll add that to the cost. There we go. We'll add that to the $50 plus shipping. Does anyone have a more complicated relationship? Whose activity or product requires an investment of time, an investment of resources? Anyone else? What are your cost benefits looking like? Yes, what do you
We're
think?
trying to make reusable face masks out of biodegradable materials.
Okay,
we don't
so
know
these
how
are
much-
the protective ones that people are wearing. Okay, cool. So what are the benefits?
It's environmentally friendly.
Okay, environmentally friendly. Okay, very good. What else?
Well, we don't know how much it's going to cost, so like we'll have to.
But what are the benefits to the user?
Well, the user will feel like they're being more mindful about their choices. Also, that they can throw it out without being guilty that it's going to ruin the earth.
Okay, so decreased guilt.
And
Okay,
because-
so the reason someone's going to use your product are it's environmentally friendly, they're being more mindful of the environment, and there's decreased guilt.
Well, most of the time, your face masks are only one use only. So, like, if
Okay.
you have to throw it out all the time, why not make it biodegradable instead of like plastics that will just stay on the earth forever?
Okay, question. Is yours going to cost more than a standard face mask?
What was that? Sorry.
Is yours going to cost more?
It could, we're not aware of that yet. But another thing that will save because most of the time, when they buy medical devices or supplies, they buy them in large amounts. And they have to keep buying, face masks. Or ours are reusable, so they'll save, whoever purchases the supplies money.
Yeah. So this is interesting, and the reason that this is interesting is your customers, so right here guys, and then your customers there, they are technically facing two fundamental different decisions in terms of what you're asking the person to do. Oh, why already? So, in yours, you have the person here, and they have a pre-existing option, and you're trying to redirect them to another option. So your value statement is linked to whatever value they currently get from this. So all of your benefits are in relation to the benefits they already get from an option. So they're already going to do something. you're convincing them that investing in your option is added value for them. Now, your interesting point is yours will probably or possibly will cost more. So, and we'll get to this later. You're tapping into wider societal concerns in order to add the value elsewhere, which is a really good move, by the way. Yours is different because yours, they have no option. So, which is true, right? They have no option to show their national pride and be in a baseball jersey. So they don't have anything to go to already. So all you have to show is that you are better than nothing. Well, right, exactly, which is fine. Exactly, it's fine, right. So basically, and we can do this at a later time, but think about this idea of when you get a moment, think about the idea of the benefits and the costs, and look at the way in which they trade off against each other. Now, here's the magic. This is not the real equation, because people aren't rational, right? Humans aren't rational. So, we add in what we basically call the subjective expected utility model. Fancy, I know. Which is subjective expected benefit has to be bigger than the subjective expected cost modeled by probability. So, if you're thinking about how people make decisions, what do you need to do?
Ask them how to make those decisions.
Huh?
Ask them how to make a decision.
No, I mean obviously. Let's say we assume we understand. Using this equation, what can we do to make people make the decision you want them to make?
You guilt them?
Guilt them? Is one way of doing it, yeah. What would guilting them do? Oh, right, okay. Why does guilting someone make them do what you want them to do?
Because then they'll feel worse and then it might stay with them longer.
Right, so they're getting a benefit, right? The benefit is the alleviation of guilt. Right, if I'm feeling guilty, then by doing what you want me to do, I'm alleviating guilt, which is a benefit to me. So the stronger the guilt I'm currently feeling, the greater the benefit when I do the thing that stops me feeling guilty. So you can, right? And this is the idea, right? We need to increase the subjective experience of the benefit. So you need to make them feel that they get more benefit from it. Yes?
Yeah, I was gonna go back to the whole point of value. They feel like they are adding more value to their whatever product you're trying to make them purchase, then they're more likely to purchase it if they feel that the value of it will impact their lives.
Agree, right? That it is going to increase something that is relevant to them. And the other element here, and someone mentioned this earlier, right? It's this idea of probability. So if there is a cost, you want them to minimize the likelihood that they'll experience the cost. And if there's a benefit, you want them to maximize the feeling that they're going to get benefit of. Right, your jerseys, right? Okay, let's go with the example of this, right? Your jerseys. If I'm wearing your jerseys once a year, right? That's all that's. Right? So the subjective feeling is that I'm going to wear it a ton. I'm going to get a ton of benefit from it all the time. Right? There was a hand over here. Your hand,
Well, I was just saying when you were asking like how to convince people, I said using like a logic that makes sense. Like, because if you are saying that like this product brings you some sort of logical conclusion, then it's hard to discern that. Like with statistics or something that only you would know.
Okay.
So then it's hard for the consumer to actually do research and just kind of take it as it is.
Exactly. And right, when we go back to my iPhone example, why do I not still make the decision? And it's because my perception of the cost is very, very low. Because I don't think I'm going to drop it very often, despite the fact I drop it literally every other month. I'm going to smash it every other month, I drop it every other week. Right? So I don't think, I know the costs are expensive, but I don't think the costs are going to happen to me. Now that is a fundamental human behavior. We always maximize our own success and minimize the likelihood that a negative thing will happen to us. And this is the problem with advertising on negativity. We always assume we're immune. If you ask people like this, right, okay, honestly, they haven't done this survey, but if you said to people, if you went on a cruise ship with someone with the coronavirus, do you think you'd get it? Most people would say no. Despite the fact that statistically they're more likely to get it. It's because we believe we are better than average, and it's called a positive illusion. It's the first thing that disappears in depression. It is a fundamental human thing. So when it comes to people thinking about negative consequences, we naturally don't think they're going to happen to us. Which usually means that when you're thinking about your value proposition, is we normally minimize the likelihood that a bad thing will happen to us. Your hand was up, buddy. What do you think?
No, everything you're saying kind of brings me back to the story. So I've had 2 driving accidents in the past, and I still think the next accident's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, even though I've been into accidents already, my mindset still thinks it's
what that means is, if we're thinking about it this way, right, 100% I agree with you. If we're thinking about it this way, if I'm trying to sell you some kind of tool to make you a safer driver, I'm going to have trouble selling it to you by telling you it will make it less likely for you to crash, because you're going to think, I didn't crash. Right, even if you crash twice, right, you might be a horrible driver, you're going to think, I didn't crash. So I can't take that message with you, right? The message I need to take with you is one about how it's going to enhance the positivity. Because that's something you're attuned to, because we naturally filter out negativity. Right? We don't, negative messages in the world, we are less likely to engage with. So if I advertise on negativity and saying it's going to minimize costs to you, there's a natural inclination to say, well, those costs don't matter anyway, because they don't apply to me, even though you are, for all intents and purposes, statistically, terribly right. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing, but that's the problem. So we need to think about the subjective expected utility of the benefit. Now I'm going to give you one more thing, and then I'm going to pass this over to you to think about. Right. Answer me this one. And this is from a scientific study. How do you explain a suicide bomb? How do you explain somebody's decision to conduct a suicide bomb? Same theory, same everything. Yes, sir?
Is it because they believe that they're doing something greater than something more bad, basically?
Mm-hmm. All right, very good. I'm going to write that down. Yeah, greater. Yeah. Anything else? What else would explain a very, very extreme behaviour that can possibly, that to the rational observer is no way you win with a benefit and cost model? Yes, sir.
It's like a sacrifice for better.
Okay. Okay, sacrifice for better, sure thing. And yes, you're going to have it, buddy. What do you think?
I was going to say if they had an extremely low sense of self-worth.
Yeah. Not statistically not supported, but sure. Right. Okay. Now, let me tell you the psychology of this, right? Because this is the old classic dilemma of how you solve decision making. Now, when you think about extreme decisions like this, or this just as an example of a decision that is very hard to justify. And I think it literally, I'm not going to equate or give a false equivalency to the two, but it's like the iPhone example, right? It's so irrational, yet I'm going to do it every single time. And I'm not being irrational when I do it. Now, people have studied these decisions and they said, why on earth basically does this happen? And what they said is when you look at the list of benefits that you get from activities, right? And they can be a sense of inclusion, they can be feeling fly, they can be whatever it is, right? They're not all equal. And this is something I want you to think about, because there's something that Philip Tetlock called basically a sacred values theory. And the sacred values theory is, have more space here, that there are 2 types of values in this world: secular and sacred. A secular value, money, maybe, yeah, money, ease, shipping costs, my time. You know, these are things that we have in the world, right? That we think about. They exist, their benefits and their costs, but they just are. Okay? Sacred values are values that are deeply meaningful and deeply important and deeply attuned to us. We don't like the idea of making sacrifices against these kinds of values. Now, they can be religious, they can be family, they can be cultural, they can be whatever it is, right? But they're these few values that mean the world to us. Now, if you look at decisions and you pit a secular value against a secular value, I'm not going to say nobody cares, but people don't really care that much, right? It's like going into a coffee shop and you're trying to convince me that I should buy the cheese sandwich instead of the prosciutto sandwich. Like, I care a little bit. I like prosciutto more than cheese. Prosciutto will probably win, but I'm not really deeply invested in this decision, right? These are just, there are variables there, and you know, one has more value than the other, meat being my personal value of choice, but there we go. But you haven't invested, you haven't emotionally attached your pool beer. Now, if you add a sacred value into a decision, people make it every time, and they're invested in it, and they're committed to it, and they believe in it. Now, I've studied that in suicide bombers, I've studied that in soldiers, I've studied it in literally doctors and people making general decisions. Yes, sir, question?
The bomber's sacred value is greater than the secular.
So the sacred value, which is what you all identified, right, is things like the overall greater good, sacrificing for the better self, protection of the ingredient. These are sacred values to them, right? And so it doesn't matter about the death, the pain, the violence, because those are secular. There's this elevated value that will always guide their behavior. And another one is I study a lot when I study soldiers and some of the stuff we do. A sacred value for soldiers is protecting other soldiers, which means no matter what the decision is and the cost of the other action, they always choose it because it's just a value that's really, really deeply important to them. Now that might seem out there, but the reason I refuse to ever get a case, no matter how much money it costs me, is I am deeply attached to the feeling of an iPhone without a case. Because it speaks to me. And if you look at the best companies in the world, they do not communicate to you on secular values. iPhone does not win you because of its gigabytes. Now, mind you, some of you guys probably tell me, right? But that's not how they communicate, is it? The best brands in the world communicate something more meaningful, which helps you overcome the costs, even if they rack up significantly, right? Because it speaks to you on a level that is important. Now, I want you to think about that. When you think about your companies, think about that higher level meaning that you're tapping into. Op 250 doesn't win because it says that it will stop 27 kids from Googling revenge, whatever it is. It wins because it talks about the sanctity of innocence and the value of youth and youth being destroyed by the internet. Those are deep and meaningful concepts that people get behind down the cost. That's why it's a non-profit and it works. Because it can convince people to give them tons of money because they believe in the innocence of youth. So when you're thinking about your value proposition, think about the way you're tiering those variables. So when you're presenting your case, you'll have the money idea, right? You can save a bunch of money, you can make a bunch of money, people will save a bunch of money by doing stuff. But we do things every single day that loses us money. It's obscene how many things we do every day that lose us money. But the reason we do those things, despite the money, is because we're doing it for things that mean something more to us. Now you as a company, as you sell it to the consumer, as you sell it to the seller, you need to know what that is. Think about that sacred value that people are going to be guided by and bought in. Because that's how you maximize that value proposition. Because you show the benefit is something that's truly important, and the costs are something that are rare, and they're just factors associated with life, their time, their money, whatever. But they're getting something that means so much more. And that's the communication strategy you need to maximize that value proposition. Does that make sense to everybody? So think about it. How long have we got? We've got think about it. For the next 10 minutes, I want you to think about the benefits, the costs, but that higher level meaning that you're tapping into. Apple does it. Does anyone remember the iPhone app? It's, what was it? If it's not an iPhone, it's not an iPhone. That's not communicating benefits and costs, but it's tapping into what comes with an iPhone, which is you're way cooler than everybody else. It's an iPhone. You're amazing. These are things that look, a bunch of people don't care about that, and they go get Androids. Fine, go get Androids, fine. But to other people, that is so important to me. The idea of branding myself, of who I am, of my self-identity, of what I see when I look in the mirror. Those are sacred to me. I will pay silly money to make myself feel better when I look in the mirror, right? But that's what this is about. Everything we do is about so much more than just the variables. Yours, by the way, I think yours is fantastic because you tap into cultural identity, right? History, legacy, family, all of this stuff that means a lot to people. So it's not just about your jersey cheaper than the other jersey, right? You're tapping into something that will emotionally have an effect. So a small bit of science with it. We did. Huh?
Never been done before.
Exactly right. We did this. There's a neuroscientific study, right? You give people different debates or questions or whatever, and you measure them. And when people said that they had a value that was sacred, and you presented them with that decision, the decision was easier for them. But the way their brain reacted was just like on steroids compared to everything else. Like it lit it up. It lit up the emotion areas. It lit up the neural areas. It lit up the frontal lobe areas. They incite. They cause a reaction in people. And for you to truly, because this is the thing about the world, right? All of you come up with great ideas. 100%. All of you come up with great ideas, and all of you come up with ideas that are on the face of it rational. That people should rationally use your product because yours, right? More biodegradable, you don't have to throw it away every time. You don't win with rationality because we aren't rational, right? We are an emotionally thinking person. So when you think about your value proposition and the way you communicate yourself, if you just stick to rational, you fight with one arm behind your back. You've got to think about these higher level, almost philosophical concepts that are going to really make your narratives and your campaigns speak to people. And once you speak to them, you connect them on an emotional level, charge you whatever the hell you want, I'll do it anyway. Charge me double, I'm still not going to put the case on my phone. Okay? So I just want you to do that, right? 10 minutes. Just as a group, think about it. Think about that higher level emotional concept. That's your true value, okay? And that's what you need to be selling in the rest of these things. I'll hang around, I'll talk to people, I'll see what I can do. Sound good? All right, get to work.
For the record.
Now, this is what you think. The only way you find out what is second to them.
Whatever it is.
The only way you can find out what do you really think. If you talk
I'm sure you're all techie North Campus people, so my annual plea, remember psychologists exist, we're moderately useful occasionally. But no, if you have any other questions, if you want any help with this, any of this stuff, I'm here. I'm a Difference Maker Fellow. Drop me an email. If not, I look forward to seeing you at the pitch-offs, say hi, good luck. But thanks for being a part of this. So a quick story. I ran a program through Difference Makers 3 years ago. That company is currently got about $1 million in funding and is all across the state and country. So I know it may seem we start everything in here with these little presentations, but the program has some incredible potential to take you where you want to go. So believe in it, believe in yourself. I look forward to spending the rest of the semester with you. So thank you, everyone. Great.
We're both on South Campus. Come down and visit us. If you're ever down there, you can come see us. We're always happy to help. My background is research in biology and a bunch of neurocognitive stuff and did neurocontrol of autonomic regulation. So if you have questions about stuff like that, always happy to help out with that. Still know people in research. We're all here for you. Develop your idea. If we don't see you on South Campus, we'll see you at the Idea Challenge.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you very much.
You're on North Campus right now, so.
Hey, before we leave, I have to remind you, Monday is the third workshop, okay? Same place. And again, we feed you dinners as well. So be here on Monday next week. It's the third workshop. And the idea plan is open online. If you're ready, you can fill it in. Okay? But the deadline is March 2nd. If you don't put in your idea plan, you out. Okay? Idea plan is the next step. Definitely have to